Okay, Rain Tree. I think it's a very atmospheric little study, this one. And the music, to me, is very reminiscent of the music of the Japanese composer Toru Takemitsu. And the title itself, Rain Tree, seems to me to be very Toru Takemitsu type title as well. So I don't know whether that was actually intended by the composer who wrote this study. That is, I think it's Solari. Um, yeah, the piece is kind of in the key of F, and if we look at the first line, we have E flats in it as well. So we've got some E naturals on string six, but the presence of the E flats kind of infers F mixolydian mode, because if you flatten the E in an F major scale, you get F major, F mixolydian. But we've got a B natural in there rather than the B flat that would normally occur in the F major scale. So we have this rather striking tritone relation between the tonality of the piece and the fifth note of the scale, which is sharpened to a B natural. We have this tritone relationship, which gives a very kind of atmospheric, mysterious kind of feel to it. Taking the first line, um, which I'll just play now. Okay, the first line then. I think we can do this in block chords first of all. So every group of four notes, each one beginning with the stem up minim, can be played as a block chord, thumb index middle annular. So we have the first one. Now the second one, all we need to do is release the fourth finger to the first finger. And we're there. The next one, in the music, it suggests bringing the third onto the F, but I think that makes for not such a smooth transition. I would simply bring the fourth finger back on that F as you bring the first across to the F on string one. I think that makes for a smoother transition, as you might be able to see. And then we're going to need to come up to this chord. Now, as we transition to the next one, what I try and do is keep that fourth finger on the E flat until you've got the other fingers in place, and then release the fourth finger. That's so that you can make a good connection when you play it as written. You get a much smoother transition there if we can make sure we hold onto that E flat for right up to the last moment. Okay, so then our next chord, we are back on that E flat and C, but this time without the A. So we've got the G there, and our final chord is back where we started. And I think that's a sensible way to approach the first line to begin with, just to get the left hand sorted out. Okay, the second half of this, well, not second 2/3 of this piece are played now. Um, right, yeah. So we can do the same thing to start with. we can do block chords. So if we have first block chord, fourth finger on the C. For the second block chord, we can use the fourth finger as a guide finger up to the E flat, and we get a transition like that. So it could make a bit of a squeaky sound if you got new strings. So as you can hear, my strings of my guitar are quite new, and I get a bit of a squeak as I move. As the strings get a little bit older, you lose that. If you want to avoid that, then you have to lift the fingers off the strings and come back on. But we can play block chords here. So now the B at the beginning of bar 5 is actually, although it's indicated to last the whole bar, and you can achieve that by careful placement of the bar A at the end there. You know, in practicality, that B is you're not going to notice it disappearing by the time you get to the end of the bar. So I wouldn't worry about avoiding cutting it off as you place the bar A down for the third position chord. So, okay, that's the first two chords. The next one begins with a harmonic. Now, it's indicated the second finger for the harmonic in the music. I prefer the third because I think everything else falls, for me at least, and everything else falls right in place with the third finger on the harmonic. If I use the second, we've got this awkward spread between the first finger and the one that's playing the harmonic. So I'm going to use the third finger. No, sorry, got the position wrong there. So, and perhaps you could play that as the harmonic separately, and then the block chord. So we have ignore the B for the moment, and then we have the harmonic, and then our chord, and of course putting that. And we need to get a crescendo up to that B flat. The next bar, we've got just that same fingering to be held with the harmonic at the bottom. Again, I would play the harmonic with the third finger rather than the second. It does mean to say you've got to make that movement with the third finger to reach the G, but I think you've got plenty of time for that. And I don't know, just think it's better than the second finger. I'd use the thumb sweep, but softly for that chord. So I think I've got a bit of a buzz in that one. Yeah, that's better. In the next bar, the harmonic is probably best played with the second finger because we don't want to quit that G to come back. You can hear it lifting off if I lift that third finger off to play the harmonic. So in this case, I would play the second finger with for the harmonic. Now, for contrast, you could play that Ponticello, a little bit more Ponticello. It's optional. And then perhaps Cantasto for the next one. It's possible to do it the opposite way as well. You know, you can play around with the timbre effects to get more contrast between those identical phrases. So we have that slur as well from the A sharp to the B. Okay, I don't think there's anything more to say about that. At the end of bar 9, we've got a long pause, so you've got plenty of time to get back down to first position and play these triplets. okay. Decrescendo over that as well, ending quietly. And of course, making sure that you sustain all of those notes, particularly the F. I would try and sustain the others as well, just to add resonance. One thing perhaps to point out, the fermata signs. If you have a look at the few instances here, there's the last bar in line 1. There's the first bar, bar 9, first bar of line 3, and the very last bar. It looks as though, at first glance, you might think, oh, there's 2 fermatas, there's 2 places I've got to pause, but that's not the case actually. The fermata on the first, at the beginning of the first one, it's not always on the beginning of the bar, is it? But the first one is just first fermata in bar 9, for example. It's on the C sharp, that first fermata. In the last bar, it's on the F, and then the last bar of the first line is over the A. Those fermatas, it's just to account for the fact that you've got a fermata on the very last note of the bar. So there's not a pause there. It can be a bit misleading. So, but I think the musical effect is it's pretty obvious that that's not what's intended. So I think that pretty well wraps it up. Remember that, just one other thing, remember that the harmonics, when you get to bar 6, that if you're a little bit tasto for the first 2 bar, for the first bar 5, shall we say, when you try and do that harmonic, it's not going to come out very loud, so you're going to have to move the hand down to get a louder sound there. And I suppose try not to pause on that too long. We don't want a hiatus there, so sorry, do that again. Yeah, so you've got to be aware of the fact that those harmonics at fret 7 don't come out very well if you're a little bit too tasto. So they sound better if your hand is here. Okay, I think that just about wraps that one up.